Welcome back to another episode of Rooted and Rising. I'm Kelly Beckert here with Melissa Ordaz, my co-host. And we are still with Tom and Gayle Shook. If this is your first time tuning in, Rooted and Rising is a podcast dedicated to creating a space for Christ followers to share their God stories. Our theme verse comes from Psalm 66, and it says, "Come and listen, all you who fear the Lord, and I will tell you all that he's done for me." And we have finished one episode with Tom and Gayle. Mm-hmm. Thank you for staying, because there's so much more that we want to talk about today. Will you tell us a little bit? I know through your testimonies, you talked a little bit about the missions field, but I love the story. I remember, being in class with you and you first feeling called to go to outer Mongolia, at the time still a closed country, and that whole bringing that story home to Gayle. Will you just talk a little bit about the calling and then sort of what the big overview has been for you guys over the last 30 plus years?
So in terms of God's calling on our life to go to Mongolia, so I had been a Christian for about 2 years, and, he completely changed our lives, right? And so we devoted ourselves to saying, Lord, what do you want for us? What do you want to do with our life?
Yeah.
As we're following you, right? So I'm working full time again as like a foreman of a factory, and we were just following Jesus, and then we got involved with some people that were going through a book called Operation World.
But wait, there was one point of it though I want to say, because Kelly was a part of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember this. But we were meeting in our Bible study that we met, and our kids were all little. And it was New Year's Eve, and there was a video by Keith Green. Well, he had passed away and his wife was there. So we watched this whole video. At the end of it, she says, don't pray to be a missionary. Just pray to be willing to go anywhere and do anything for God. And that seemed like a really safe prayer. And it was New Year's Eve. So of course, you know what I mean? Let's make it a New Year's resolution. So that really became something that we did pray every single day, that God would make us willing to do and go wherever he wanted us to go.
Yeah. And then shortly after that, we got a hold of that book. Operation World. And Operation World is a book that gives statistics on countries and Christianity within those countries.
Yeah.
So we started to pray through this book. And, we just started with A and B and C, and we got to the M section, and Mongolia came up, right? It's like 2.5 million people, communist country, no Bible, no Christians. And as if the Lord said, that's what you're supposed to do, right? So something clicked for me, and it was like that. Okay, that's where we're supposed to devote our life, is to bring the gospel to this place that has never heard the gospel before. And as someone who experienced the gospel, that's like, how could that be, right? How can it be that there's these places in the world that don't know anything about Jesus, that don't have it, right? So that started us on a journey. We have no education. We have no reason why anybody would ever think that we could go to Mongolia and tell people about Jesus. We just didn't know what to do. But we knew that God had called us. The church we were attending, we went to them and we said, hey, God's calling us to Mongolia. We're a young family, and they're like, I don't think so. I'm getting. No, we didn't hear it. We didn't hear that. And then they said, well, we're not really interested in sending you, and that we don't send families anyways. At that time, this particular church only sent people, kind of locally, and then maybe a single person they would send out to go live in another country or something.
Or a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or just a couple.
Yeah.
So anyways, then somebody directed us to Calvary Church, Santa Ana. And so this was just a church, as a Christian church. So they invited us, said, hey, they got lots of missionaries over there. Why don't you guys think about going there? So we went down to Calvary Church, Santa Ana, got acquainted with the church. They had this thing they call the fellowship hall. And in the fellowship hall, they had these pictures of missionaries all the way around the fellowship hall. Like there were more than 60 at the time.
Yeah.
They're portraits of these missionaries, right? And I look at Gayle, I'm like, maybe the Lord would send us. So that's kind of how it all started. And then I think you'll probably interject some other things that I'm missing.
There was a couple.
Yeah. And then I'll say some other things. Go ahead.
But one of the things is while we were still at the other church, which was very influential in our life.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a great church.
Mm-hmm.
But Tom had really gotten his heart pricked for Mongolia. I went to the next country after, which I think was Morocco or something. I kept praying. And he took me up to a map, and I had James, my third, on my hip. So I don't even think he was a year. And Tom says, I know where God wants us to go. And he points to Mongolia. Well, if you don't know where Mongolia is, it's a landlocked country between Russia and China. So this is 1987. All of those countries are communist. And so I looked at him and I said, I don't think so. Like, what's God going to do? Parachute us in? I was very snarky. And he said, that's not our job. Our job is to be ready. Yeah. And so because we had already been praying to be willing to go anywhere and do anything, I felt like, again, it was still a safe thing to do. Because to be honest, I know us. So I never thought God would send us, right? Like, again, you have an idea of how God uses people, and I just never thought we would ever go.
In some weird way, isn't a closed country feel safe?
Yeah, yes, because like, you really want
to go there. I mean, they're closed.
They're closed. They'll never open.
We'll try. We'll see. We're going to knock on that door.
It's like a continual student. We just keep trying and don't actually ever get there, kind of thing. Yeah.
But the cool thing about it is that it was a day during that time. Most mission organizations required some like 20 units of the Bible in order to send you. And so we started going to Bible school at night. So we had the 3 kids and I was homeschooling, then going to Bible school at night. And the second we were done with the Bible school and got our AA in the Bible, the wall fell.
Yeah.
And Mongolia was open. So then it was like, oh my gosh, we're going.
It's pretty amazing. Wow. Actually, and we had a pastor at Calvary that he's passed away now, but he was kind of our mentor.
Yeah.
And he came into our home when we first started to attend the church, and we told him that God's calling us to Mongolia, right?
Yeah.
And he didn't say no, right? He didn't say that you guys don't have the education. You're not from a Christian family. You don't have the history.
Yeah.
Why would we send you to this place to carry the cross of Christ? Yeah. If you don't, and he never said anything like that. He just said, okay, we're going to work with you and we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Right. And it was a long process. It's actually 6 years from when God's called us to Mongolia to the point where we actually landed in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. Yeah. It was a 6-year journey, but the whole time the church trained us and prepared us. Yeah. We started helping out in the nursery with the kids. And then it was the first grade Sunday school class. And then we were working with international students. And then we got involved helping to start a church in Rancho Santa Margarita. And so, this whole time the church is preparing us to go to the mission field. And then we're going to school at night. And, we just submitted ourselves under them and they sent us.
Yeah.
It's actually, that's a whole nother story, how that actually happened, but they sent us.
We're taking a quick break to tell you about something we think every young family should know. If you're a parent of a little one, newborn through 6 years old, Heights Christian Schools is here to partner with you. Our preschools offer safe, loving environments where faith, learning, and play go hand in hand. With locations across Southern California, you'll find a campus that feels like home. Learn more at heightschristianschools.org, and let's grow together. Now back to the conversation.
One of the things I think is, again, it's a theme, right? But often the Bible talks about that God does miracles so that we and others will see and know that he's real. And I feel like when you're publicly telling people that you're training to go to this closed country, and then think about that timing, you finish basically all of the requirements and then those doors open.
That's it.
You got to know that there were people watching that all of a sudden thought, maybe they are hearing from God. Like, wow, that's like remarkable, incredible timing. And it was like perfect.
Yeah.
And so did you go?
Well, wait a minute. We obviously want to hear that, but I want to really quick ask, throwback from last episode. You were saying, Gayle, do you understand what it means to be a Christian? Like God might call us to Africa.
Yeah, right.
Did you have a moment where you looked at her and said, see, I told you we were going to get into it. Did that ever happen?
Now look at it. Yeah.
Well, actually had another moment, kind of the opposite moment. So we had a home and we felt like we needed to sell our home. If we didn't sell our home, eventually we would stay. And so we made a decision to sell it and move down closer to our church and started getting rid of all our furniture and everything to go. And so we had some French provincial furniture. We paid $3,000 for this furniture in 1980 something. Yeah.
And it was like,
90.
I was like in love with this furniture, right?
But the apartment was too small. It wouldn't fit.
It wouldn't fit in the apartment we were in after we sold the house.
And so then we decided to sell it, right? And so somebody said they wanted to buy it. And then we were trying to set up a time. And I'm thinking, okay, I want to get the furniture out of the house before Tom even sees it leave, right? But that wasn't God's plan. So the guy has the furniture in the back of his truck as Tom is coming home, and they pass each other. And at that point, Tom says to me,
it was a crisis, right? It was like, what have I done? Like, no, stop, right? You don't go to Mongolia. You can get the furniture back. You can buy the house again. You just need to stop. And we got to stop this nonsense, right? So I had it was like a crisis of the call. Right? Are you really going to do it? And at that point, up until that point, Gayle was more like the follower of the call, right? Like, the obedient wife following her husband wherever he goes, blah, blah, blah.
That's how I always think of you.
She says that's not.
But in those days, that's kind of what the thinking, right?
Yeah.
But then, but then I tell people this too, that God calls a family, right? It's not just one person, it's not dragging somebody else along, right? So anyways.
So he said that. I said, I have sacrificed too much. I've gone too far in this that you're not doing this to me. No, we're going.
Let's go, Bubba. So
by the time that we left, we were both cemented.
So it was the calling was cemented, right?
That was a mercy because you need it on the field.
Yeah.
It needed to be both our callings.
Yeah, in hindsight, right? So letting that was tough.
Yeah.
Right.
Again, how amazing.
renewing the call, and then going, oh, right, we're all in, let's go.
It doesn't matter.
How amazing the two of you guys worked together, how God, equipped you both in different ways to be that team that he needed to be.
Yeah,
so
that's amazing.
It's a miracle. That's just a full-blown miracle.
How human is it? I feel like you're like Mongolia. Yes. 6 years of training. Yes. Yeah. My furniture. Okay. This is a bad idea. Right? That's so human.
Maybe it's like satanic attack even. Or just my flesh. I don't know.
But it
was hard.
Very much so. The fact that God calls us to what is pulling on our heart.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that it is human. We are human.
Yeah. 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
And so.
Well, and I, at the risk of sounding like the older person in the conversation, you can't minimize, it's hard now. It's hard anytime to follow God. It's hard to leave your home and got it. But, I think about first of all, you're leaving civilized life. You're going to a third world country. There's no electricity. You have a modest but 3-bedroom home. You're scaling away everything so that you're leaving. What are you taking? One Tupper one Rubbermaid tub per person, right?
Yeah.
With all of your stuff. I mean, so it's I think I would say that's going to be challenging for anybody.
Yeah.
And that's a very tangible, observable thing.
Yeah.
But the reality is, like, when you're following Christ, there's things he asks you to give away, to give up, to strip away, and you have a choice.
Yeah.
You strip them away yourself, or he strips them away for you.
Right.
And so I think those are such important, honest reflections, because it's not easy, but how good it is.
How good it is.
Yeah. How good he is.
Yeah.
So then they get to Mongolia.
Okay, so you got there, I'm assuming.
We got there.
We did.
On a
We did
plane.
get there. Yeah, in September 1992.
Yeah.
So
And generally, the first term is the hardest.
Well, you don't speak the language.
Yeah.
And like I tell people when we went going to the market, market with you, you know, and having, we're going to buy meat.
Right.
And meat is in those big, what do you call those big, like gasoline can things?
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Like literally we go to this place and there's these big canisters filled with some
like a
kind
trash
of water.
can,
It's like a
metal.
metal trash can filled with water. This one rolls up her sleeve and like digs in, pulls something out. Man, I want that one. You know,
What was it?
it's meat.
Oh,
no,
meat.
it's like, was it mud? I don't know.
I don't
what it
remember
was.
it's one of 5 things.
Yeah.
Camel, horse, cow, goat, or sheep.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so
One of the
all
5
those
animals.
things, cow
So-
is the only thing that you're going to be familiar with, right?
Yeah.
Well, and you're having to learn because it's not USDA
Yeah.
approved.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
It's
Like, you
not
don't
like
get
a
like
sealed
there's no
package,
card
the
on it that
dates.
says this is, the
Fresh.
pork. Well, they didn't eat pork.
Mostly fresh.
Aged down.
No, but
it
I
was
mean,
very
every
fresh.
aspect, like
Yeah.
I think my point is like every moment of every day is that.
Yeah.
It's like so unfamiliar. And,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think that's why your mom was so like blown away by it. Cause I mean, I know for us coming, we were just like, it's
a whole nother world. I mean, it's just,
But there's such an opportunity to see God,
oh yeah.
right? Like to be provided for, because it was the fall of communism. So I think one big misnomer for Americans is that, oh, you get rid of communism, you have freedom. Oh, you're great. It's painful. If you haven't been raised being able to make choices, you don't know how to make a choice. You've been told what to do most of your life. I mean, it was a very painful experience for the Mongolians. And so there was no food. I mean, you know what I mean? Like you could search all day and try to find food. So when God feeds you supernaturally, you're like, well, I'm bugged that I didn't have food, but I never would have had this if God wouldn't have done it. Or also there's a sense that ease brings joy. And I feel like, and this is just from my personal experience, I actually feel like it's the opposite. I think we look at third world and difficulty and say that's not going to be joyful, when there's a lot of
Joyful
joy
things.
in life,
And the simple things.
in the simple things,
Mhm.
and a lot of angst with a lot of ease. So,
Statistics prove that as well.
So how long were you guys there?
17 years we were in Mongolia.
Okay.
So, yeah. And then
we were in 2 different locations doing church planting.
Okay.
And
community development.
And community development.
Mhm.
And both churches still exist. So that's awesome.
Did you have you lived in 2 different places?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 different places.
Within Mongolia.
So we visited the first
location,
Okay.
Mudin. And then we moved to Sukbatar in 99, 2000.
Yeah.
So,
And that's interesting what you were saying, Gayle, too, because you guys were new, but also Mongolia as a whole was in a whole new stage, right?
Yes.
In a
Right.
whole new coming of themselves. So
Right.
that is
crisis.
Yes.
In crisis.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it was wild.
Yeah.
Right. It was basically the Wild West, right? So when we first got there, the whole country basically collapsed, and so the government basically walks out. People are just going, hand to mouth. Everybody's just trying to figure out what to do tomorrow. And then they kind of go back to because they're nomadic, right? So they a lot of them went back out into the countryside with the animals. and people just trying to figure out life as they're said. They love the idea of democracy, but it's like, what is it again? How does it work? So all these things that they were learning. And then we were had the privilege to be right there. No cars. Basically, you had a few Russian cars and trucks. And then you still had the animals walking down the streets and things like that. And then now you go there and it's like, you're in a
traffic jam.
Millions of cars, not just thousands.
And the cool thing that goes back to how God calls us, there was no Christians in the country. There was only the Old Testament, New Testament that had been translated. And so
just finished.
Wow. So we would be in our town walking and they're like, "Oh, are you those Jesus people?" And you're like, "Oh man, this is so cool."
You're like, "Yes, that's why I'm here. That's me." Yes.
So it's just really, really.
You felt like you were living the book of Acts, kind of, where you're like, people never heard of Jesus at all. And, and then suddenly you're there.
Yeah.
And you're like, I want to tell you about
save
Christ.
People. And you watch people get, hear the word, get saved and walk with Christ. And then you're like, oh, this is really real. Right. Because it's outside of my American context.
Yeah.
And so we just were blessed. We're just blessed.
Can you speak a little bit about a story that maybe stands out in that of just seeing that transformation in a life?
Well, there's one young man, his name is Mungo, and we've seen him since he's gotten married and had kids. So it's just awesome.
He's old too now.
Yeah, I know. But he was one of the first believers. And he had, there's kind of two stories with him, but he wanted to be baptized. So it's September. Mongolia is stinking cold most of the year. Okay. So September, it's already getting cold. He wanted to do he wanted to be baptized in the river because we didn't have bathtubs. So, where else are you going to baptize him in the river? And so,
ice water.
We went out to the river in September and there's ice on the side. He was baptized. We went home the next morning early. He comes to the door, knocks on our door, and we had just that evening had the first snow. And he came in and he said these words. And remember, he only had the New Testament. He says, "It's like God has washed made my
white as snow.
My sins as white as snow."
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, and we opened up our Bible, showed him the Old Testament and translated it. So you just saw this reality of this young man coming to Christ and prophetically speaking the Old Testament.
There was another girl who she got exposed to the Word of God on a whiteboard or a chalkboard, not a whiteboard, on chalkboard, right? Because somebody had come and started to tell people about Christ. And so she had copied all this stuff down on a piece of paper. She didn't have the Bible, right? But she had this stuff that they told me about Jesus, and she trusted Jesus and she's following Jesus.
Yeah.
And then she came to when she found out that we had moved into their village, she had come to us, because she wants to know, now you're here. Now you guys can tell me more about this Jesus who I heard about. I got all this stuff written down. I went to the seminar. They showed me all this stuff. We look at it and we're like, okay, yeah, this is stuff. And it's a little dirty around the edges of that, around the perimeter of the pieces of paper that she had. Right. And then she's brushing off the paper and we're like, oh, what's going on? And she's like, oh, and then it's what? And she said, well, I had to go to the bathroom and I dropped it in the outhouse. So she had dropped her notes, right, while she was going to the bathroom, because they have outhouses in Mongolia.
Yeah.
She dropped it down there and she went down into the outhouse and she fetched it
out.
Right. The Word of God, what she thought, she had, right.
Been taught.
That was the
and it was so meaningful for her. Right. Yeah. And
very convicting for us, because what would we
take
do?
it all for granted.
Right.
You think it's,
right.
And to see people who devour God's Word when they get it. Right.
Yeah.
And it's just an amazing Christian woman, who's went on and, done.
Yeah. Loves Jesus.
Yeah.
So I feel like those stories of transformation, or like any Christian hearing this, is like, oh, probably so edified by that, so excited by that. But also you guys were there for years. So like, can you talk about the days when those stories felt few and far between and how you kind of continued on in what God had called you to do?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Our house burned down. So,
all right. Yeah.
Gayle will tell them.
It was within a few years of being in Mongolia.
93.
Yeah.
So we had been there. We had moved to the countryside from the capital, and we've been out and we bought a log cabin with a little yard for $600.
Yeah.
And then
I ended up needing to go to China for healthcare. There wasn't good healthcare in Mongolia, and there was an issue, and the mission required me to go to China. I flew from our little town to the main capital to go get my visa and then get a ticket to go into China. And so I had walked to the Chinese embassy, waited in line, walked back home. And when I got back to this apartment, our teammate said, "Hey, Tom called you." And I'm like, "Oh, really? I've only been gone so many, you know what I mean? He really misses me." And then I went back out to actually retrieve the visa. And I came back and they go, "Oh, he called again." And so I'm like, "Okay." And then he ultimately called me while I was home, and he said, "Gayle, we burned down the house. All of our things are gone. And so get everything from China." And I just remember going, oh my gosh. I mean, just in shock.
Yeah.
That we lost everything.
Yeah. So what had happened is the kids, the boys went up into the rafters of this log cabin to look at birds. They heard birds and they went up there, and obviously no electricity. So what do you use for light? A candle. So they had a candle, and then they went up there to see, and this is our youngest was 7 and Ryan was 10. Yeah, 10 or 11.
11.
And they just went up there to go check out the birds, and then left the candle up there, came down, and then that's what started the fire.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting how God uses things, right? Because the fact that this was probably, a terrible, hard thing to experience.
Yeah.
And, I remember taking my son to the edge of the yard, and, he's crying and saying, "Dad, I'm sorry I burned the house down." He's a fireman, by the way.
He grew up to be
he grew up to be a fireman.
Yeah.
But he said, "Dad, I burned the house down." And I took him to the edge of the yard, and I said, "Rye, none of this matters, right? It's just material stuff."
Yeah.
I said, "You're okay. That's all that matters." The whole community came around us. So these people that were already struggling to feed their families and to clothe their own families gave of their want even, to help us to reestablish ourselves, rebuild the roof, gave their clothing to us, and basically bonded us with this community of.
Let me ask you something, because it's so funny.
It's so hard.
I'm trying to remember if I'm remembering your story incorrectly.
Yeah.
Because I've shared this story so many times over the years. And one of the beautiful things out of this story that I remember, or that I think I remember, is that when you guys moved to Muran, you didn't look like everybody else, and they were leery of you.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It was really hard to actually build relationship with people. They were suspicious. They weren't sure why you were there. They weren't sure what you wanted. And so they weren't really very welcoming.
Right.
And not that long after being there, when the house burns down, it's that moment of humanity when they all come out and they gather around, and all of a sudden they're going to help you rebuild your home. Right. Because I remember that being a pivotal time of God really opening hearts and lives and building those kinds of close connections that hadn't been there before. And I always carry that with me, because I feel like so many times, whatever the house is that burned down in your life, God finds no pleasure in it, but it's the only way that he can accomplish this greater thing that he's doing, right? And is that what happened, right?
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah. And that I was here, you were there, but in that moment, that was your perception. Like, I got that story from you guys, right? It's just the reality of.
And in a totally superficial way, I've heard this story before. I didn't realize Gayle wasn't there. And my first response is to laugh, because isn't that every wife's like, I literally leave and you burn down the house.
For sure.
I'm just trying to go to the doctor.
So true.
Get healthy.
So true.
But it was really big for me. There were only a few things we actually took to Mongolia.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I come back from China. And God was gracious in that I was healthy and fine. And I walk into my house, basically half gone, and all of my stuff strewn all over the yard. And one of the things that I had taken was what I grew up with, which was a Santa's village. So all these candles and everything. And I was able to get it, the one kid that got it, and took it to Mongolia. And I remember picking up this little elf that's now all, warped. And I was angry.
Yeah.
And I was like, are you kidding me? Everybody in America has a garage filled with things and can't get their car into the garage. I bring a Santa's village and you take that from me. And I really struggled with that.
That why?
And and right then in that space in my yard, God reminded me of the conversation he had with Peter after the resurrection. And Christ is talking to Peter and basically tells Peter he's going to be crucified. And so Peter looks back at John and says, hey, but what about him? Right? And his words to Peter, what does it matter?
What is it to you?
Him? What is it to you? You're to follow me. And I felt like it was a renewed awareness that life is not fair.
Yeah.
Follow Jesus.
And if I'm going to follow the Lord, I have to be obedient to what he wants.
Well, and again, like these are your stories. I feel like I've lived this with you, right?
Yeah.
Well, and you did.
Here's the thing, like even as you're sharing that, it reminds me because God's so merciful. And like as hard as all that was, I also know how hard it was for you as a mom, as parents, to bring your kids over there, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about when they went, they all got one Rubbermaid tub.
Yes.
So we didn't share this detail, but it's a 2-story log cabin.
Yeah.
All the personal stuff or all the kid toys, all the stuff is upstairs.
It's upstairs.
Downstairs is the general stuff and the homeschool stuff. Right.
Yeah.
And the upstairs burns. And so the kids also
still got math.
The kids, don't worry, kids. The kids were like heartbroken because they lost their toys, but also heartbroken because the school stuff. But imagine, like, because they also experienced that same loss and that same confusion. And what do I do with these emotions? And I feel like God was gracious to allow you to experience that in real time and to be able to then come alongside and help them through that, right?
So, I like to say that to take the gospel somewhere is very expensive
for everybody.
It costs everyone, right? It costs your kids, your parents, your grandparents. Everybody pays when someone's going to carry the gospel somewhere, right? But it's worth it, right? Yeah. We do it because he's called us, right?
And also we gain him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes we miss that part, that there is never a time that he's asks us to give something or to take something away that doesn't get filled with his presence.
Mm-hmm.
She's making me cry. It's true though. I love that though, Tom. Honestly, like it costs everybody everything.
Yeah.
That's really.
Yeah. Not just you, the guy who says, I'm going.
And that makes me think about Jesus who willingly gave down his life. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Who willingly gave it all.
Right.
Right. And so not only does he ask us to do that, but he actually modeled that for us in a very authentic way.
Yeah.
Right.
And part of the joy I think we find in life is when we have those moments where we actually do that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like it's so hard to get there, but it's really in those moments that we experience the fullness of the relationship that we were created to have.
Amen.
I remember just a really quick story in our second location that kind of goes with that. Is that by the time we got to our second location, our kids are getting older.
Yeah.
So now our oldest 2 have gone off to college. I felt like they died, right? We didn't have capability of talking to them all the time, and internet wasn't quite in our town yet. And so
even calls were so expensive.
$100 for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
So
And $100 back then
then
was a
yeah,
lot.
like 500 a day or something. I don't know. Yeah,
but
crazy.
I remember Tom was asleep and I'm sitting on my sofa in my living room and I am crying. I am just crying and crying and crying and just feeling like I can't do this. When all of a sudden, just the presence of God came and I felt his hands under my face telling in the words, I catch each one of these tears. Mm-hmm. And at that point, I was like, okay, I can do this because it's not a wasted tear, right? Like God knows the sacrifice of all of our family, but he knew a mom's heart at that point.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm not distant. I'm right here.
Yeah.
Catching each one. And that was incredible. So definitely not easy. Right. But
it's the thing that's hard to explain to people though. Like don't want, like, even as we recount it, right? Like this looks sad.
Right.
Like it's really hard and it can be really heavy. But I think the tears are also like reliving that moment when you're so close to God. And there's like this comfort that you wouldn't experience any other way. And it's
that paradox that I talked about before, where in your deepest pain, you can experience something that is supernatural, in a mystery within your heart because it's him.
Yeah.
Right. You're not being filled by anything that can satisfy but him. So.
Yeah.
Well, before too much time, I mean, I love here. We could just park ourselves here because there are so many God stories, but I really want to make sure that we have time to talk about His Refuge because you guys have spent a lot of years overseas and after Mongolia. I know there were other countries.
Yes.
Somewhere.
We actually were in Idaho for 4 years because Tom was part of crisis response. So he was working on tsunamis and typhoons in Asia. And then we went back overseas and moved to Malaysia as we prepared to wait for a door to open up for us to go into a closed country that's still closed to this day. And so we're in Malaysia and then in China, hoping to move into another country before God moved us back to the States.
So 3 years in Malaysia and 3 years in China. Yeah.
And then you came back home 2019.
2019. And then we thought we would go back. We thought that the conditions in China would improve so that we could return and continue working. But that didn't happen, right? So like China just began to kick a lot of people out. A lot of Christian missionaries, South Koreans, and almost anybody who's involved in gospel work was asked to leave. But we left just before that happened, and then hoping that we could go back as if something had calmed down or whatever.
Yeah.
But it didn't. But at that time, what happened is that we were in the U.S. and we're in Santa Ana at the church, and they had a summer team that they were taking out to go to Greece, to Athens, to work with refugees in the refugee camp Moria. And so we had thought that because of the conditions in China and the country we were trying to get into could potentially have a refugee population come into China, we thought that it would be a good idea to become familiar with the refugee work. So we asked if we could go and attend this summer team with these people that were going to go help for a couple of weeks and work with refugees. So we went on that team. And then, when we saw the refugee crisis, right, and how many refugees and how many people are on the move globally. And this is 2019, 2020. So just before COVID, right? Just before COVID happened. It basically changed our situation, right? Because we're like, oh my gosh, we got to get involved with this. This is crazy. The crisis is just huge.
Well, and looking around, being back in our area of Orange County where we grew up and realizing that we're a minority now in that area. So you could throw a rock and hit a different country, so we're like, we don't need to go overseas at this point. We can do this work here.
Yeah. And then so as a result of that, we devoted ourselves to creating His Refuge. So basically, it's an organization that is focused on helping refugees and immigrants here and around the world. So,
and there's a few different arms of that, right? A few different ways that plays out. Can you talk about some of the different arms and what those look like?
Well, it was 2020 when we actually got permission from our organization to start it, which was the beginning of COVID. So everything was locked down. But luckily, because God is gracious, part of Calvary, they allowed us to still meet. We met outside, and the first thing we did was what we call Seeking Refuge, which is a prayer event. And so we started in 2020 praying once a month for a different crisis, a different country, a different people group, because we felt like we need to change our hearts. And especially during that time, 2020, there was such a rift that was new to us between Christians politically.
Yeah.
So we felt like the only way to bridge that gap was the Holy Spirit. So we need to give information about what's happening and then what is our responsibility. So we started doing that, and that's been going 5 years now.
Wow.
So that's been awesome. We just had an Iraqi man share at our last get together. And then this coming month, we're going to be covering Nigeria.
Focusing on Nigeria.
Right now is
the persecution
of Christians in Nigeria.
Stuff's happening there.
But I really feel like that was a great and is still a great foundation. Then we started welcoming families. So that means we're helping people find apartments. We're helping to get goods for their apartment, like everything that they need to set up an apartment. We help with social services, help with medical appointments,
immigration,
help schools, immigration.
There's so much to navigate.
To help them be successful.
Right.
But it's really been a gift to us because in every one of those countries that we've been to, there has always been somebody God has given us to kind of help us when we needed real help.
Yeah.
And so we get to do that for people here and try to get the church involved because we're working with countries that have not had freedom to hear the gospel or respond to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it really is the church's opportunity to meet a need that's just incredible. It's just overwhelming.
Well, and I love just the approach that you guys have taken because you're literally like, you're not leading with, let me tell you about Jesus.
Right.
I mean, certainly there's an opportunity for that.
Used and who they are.
Right.
But really leading with what you talked about, like we know what it's like to be in a country where we don't know how to navigate and we don't speak the language and we don't know anything. And even just some of the work you've done with securing like opportunities for housing. And I mean, you, again, to my earlier point, I feel like you're the guy that sees a problem and like, let's figure this out very outside the box and just start having conversations. And then, I mean, the things that God's used you to accomplish have been wild.
Yeah. One of the things that God has used is our time in Mongolia because it's such a different culture. So they have a different worldview.
Yes.
And one of the worldviews that is different than as Americans per se is that we tend to trust words. They trust actions. And a lot of the world, especially in Asia, and most of the people we're working with are from Central Asia, they're the same way. And so they want an action not just words. So you can come alongside somebody that you don't know and say, oh, I feel, give them empathy or whatever, compassion. But if it isn't with some sort of action, it doesn't mean anything to them. Yeah. So we kind of understand that. We kind of live that. And so it's been really easy. We're at a place now where we're really wanting to go deeper with our families. And like I met with a woman last week and we were talking about things and she just started to cry. She's been here like 2 years. And I'm like, oh, what's the matter? And she goes, I just miss my mom. And I'm like, oh, I know that feeling. I know what it means to just miss what is familiar, and especially your
sick.
mom. It is homesickness.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, can I pray for you? And she goes, yes, pray for me. So the opportunity to put my hand on her hand and pray for her. Why wouldn't you want to do that?
Yeah.
Right. Because you know that God's going to use that, and she feels that, and she knows I know it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Well, just how relational you are with them, right? Like spreading the gospel isn't always efficient, right? It's about
Yes.
taking
Yes.
that time.
That is great.
that is a great.
It's
Yeah.
about taking the time to
Uh-huh.
be relational so you
Uh-huh.
have those authentic
Yeah.
moments.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what an amazing opportunity that these people are coming looking for community and relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, all humans are.
Right.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Especially when you're away
Yes.
from your mom, when you want
Yeah.
somebody, and
Yeah.
what an amazing
Yeah.
opportunity for us to
Right.
step into. It's
Right.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had our most recent family arrived last Tuesday. So was it a week ago Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yeah. And family of 5, right? So
No
3,
no English.
no English at
Yeah.
all. So,
How many families are you guys?
I don't know.
I mean, it's
I don't know. I don't know how to put a number on it, but I would say more than 50
At
that
some
we have
level.
at some level
Yeah.
or another that are that's just here, there locally, right? Where we are. So between Orange County, if you just take Orange County.
Yeah.
And then we take teams in the summer, right? We'll take teams out to serve refugees mainly in Greece or Cyprus. So we do that. That's part of His Refuge, one of the things we do.
And our hope is that as people go over, that they see the hardship of it and then come back and say,
Makes sense.
oh, I can do it
Oh,
right
we can do
here. I
something
don't
here.
have to go
Yeah.
all the way over
'Cause-
there. There's so many refugees that we can make an impact
That are
with.
here,
So,
yeah.
Amen.
without moving anywhere or
Yeah.
selling anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can do it.
Provincial
Yeah.
furniture.
That's right.
So if people are listening and they want to get more involved, like how can people help? What are things that would be helpful, and how do they get more information?
Well, I mean, practically, you can't do ministry without resources. And so obviously that's finances, because we're supported missionaries. So for us and anything that we do, we have to raise the funds for. But there's also opportunities that if somebody has time or God is saying, you know what, I could do something,
Mhm.
and you're in the Orange County area, that you can actually have a relationship with a refugee family.
We'll connect you with
Right.
a refugee family locally.
We have 3
Yeah.
or 4
Yeah.
families right now that are women who are pregnant. And
Mhm.
so I'm like, hey, does anybody want to have a baby shower? And so it's like, okay, let's figure out what they need.
Yeah.
And so whether it's giving online through a registry or hosting it, I mean,
Just
there
in that
is
community.
so many, any way you want to be a friend,
Yeah.
you can be a friend
Yeah.
with a refugee.
And people can get connected through your website. Is that the best
His
place?
Refuge.
Yeah. Hisrefuge.org. Yeah.
Hisrefuge.org.
Yeah. You can connect there.
Yeah.
And then
And maybe even attend the monthly prayer nights.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I think if
They're
people want to
local.
learn,
Mhm.
but our goal is to hear from God, right? To have our own hearts changed and minds, because we all have come from the, and I want to see unity in the church in regards to human beings and how we love them. And I want it through scripture. And so it offers us an opportunity to look into the life of somebody else and say, how can God change my heart to love them
It's amazing.
Mhm.
and to serve them?
That's the last Monday of every month.
Yes.
Last Monday of every
Last
And
Monday.
that's on the website.
And
too.
that's on the website.
It's
It's on
in
there.
Santa Ana.
In Santa Ana,
at
Calvary Church.
Santa Ana.
Church Santa Ana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's amazing. I've been there.
Yeah.
I think I'm trying to remember if I've been to all, like from the beginning, like if I went to the first
I
one.
think so.
can't remember
have.
if I was
Yeah, we were at the
there.
house.
we were
I
outside
got a
in
tent.
somebody's
We made a
backyard.
tent.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I love you guys so much. As we're
You're welcome.
getting ready to wrap up, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to leave with us?
I think that I just want to encourage people to step out of their comfort arena and give God a chance, right? To meet them where they're at, to be their comfort if it's uncomfortable. But be willing to see miracle things like Tom mentioned earlier. We feel like we lived the book of Acts. People can have that now, right? You know what I mean? If we want to engage
it's there.
with
It's all
his
right here.
passion, which is his bride, but it's also the lost, right? That is our mission as the bride, is to reach the lost, and we can do it here. And so I just want to, I don't know. I feel sad that we don't have more of Christ. That makes sense for the church. And so I encourage people to do whatever. It doesn't have to be with us, but in whatever they're doing,
Reach out
and call on God.
What a great word to leave with.
And you guys are amazing. Thank you for sharing so many of your God stories with us. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Rooted and Rising. And until next time, we pray that you will stay rooted in Christ and continue rising in his goodness. Bye, everybody.
Do you have a funny kid in your life? Do you have a funny story that you'd like to share with us? If so, send it to the Rooted and Rising podcast and look forward to hearing it on a future episode.